Hello friends, welcome to a lecture on functions of elementary education. The main objectives of our today's deliberation are to know the concept of elementary education and its process of universalization. We will try to know about different steps or stages of universalization in elementary education. We will analyze the initiatives taken by the Government of India for universalization of elementary education. We will also highlight the problems associated with the universalization of elementary education and their remedial measures. And finally, we will try to find out some ways and means for improving the education at elementary stage. Let me first of all give you a brief introduction about elementary education. Education shapes the destiny of nation. The quality of human power in any country ultimately determines the sustainable well-being of its people. According to APJ Abdul Kalam, the former President of India, education makes an important contribution to the creation and formation of new man and society based on social justice. Education provides foundation for a person to be a responsible citizen. The real process of formal education begins with the elementary education. So, it forms an important part of the entire education system. Elementary education is often considered to be the first stage of entire superstructure of education set up in India. It is a stage of education when foundation of child's physical, mental, emotional, intellectual and social development is laid. There is no denying fact that the nation's strength rests on the sound foundation of its people, but it is the elementary education which plays the most significant role in laying their foundation. It is primary education which helps in removing mass illiteracy, thus making the most significant contribution to the efficient functioning of democratic institutions. Obviously speaking, elementary education is the foundation stone of whole education system. An individual who obtained sound elementary education will be sound in secondary and higher education also. The beautiful house with poor foundation is like a flower without scent. Same is the case with elementary education. If an individual has any kind of weakness at elementary level, he or she will face weakness at secondary and higher education also. This is because elementary education is the preparation stage for whole education process. Mr. K.G. Saidan, in his book Problems of Educational Reconstruction, observed that primary education is not concerned with any class or group, but has to deal with the entire population of the country. It touches life at every point and it has to do most with the formation of national ideology and character than any other single activity. Now, let us try to trace out the historical background of elementary education. The earliest attempt during British rule for enforcing compulsory primary education was undertaken by William Adam, a Scottish missionary in 1838. In 1852, Captain Wingate, the Revenue Survey Commissioner in Mumbai, proposed to impart compulsory education to the children. Later on, a similar proposal was also followed in Gujarat. A strong consciousness for the need of compulsory primary education in India was effected by enactment of the Compulsory Education Act in 1870 in England. A number of Indian leaders began to stress the need for primary education. In 1906, a committee was appointed in Mumbai province and it arrived at a conclusion that compulsory education was not proper and people were not prepared for it. With the advent of complete independence in 1947, the education of the school going children of the country now became the responsibility of the people. In 1950, the provision of universal primary education was incorporated in the Article 45 of the Constitution of the India. The state shall endeavour to provide within a period of 10 years from the commencement of the Constitution free and compulsory education for all children until they complete the age of 14 years. An insistent demand was made that government should fix an early deadline for its fulfillment and should prepare a concrete program of action for the purpose. Government decided to achieve the goal of universalization of all children on a time bound program as recommended by the Conference of State Education Ministers in 1977. Now, let us have a look over the structure of elementary education. 8 years of primary education is envisaged into two stages: a junior stage covering a period of 5 years and a senior stage covering a period of 3 years. It needs to be mentioned that 8 years of compulsory education was envisaged as one integrated unit, although there were 2 stages in the cycle. Hence, elementary education became the compulsory component of education in India. As per the Kothari Commission 1964 to 66, primary education can be divided into 2 subcategories, that is lower primary, it is of 4 years duration, it caters the age group of 6 to 10 years. Then second is higher primary, it is of 3 years duration, it caters the age group of 10 to 13 years. As per the 5-year plan, the trend of 5-year plan has divided primary education into 2 stages, which are a 5-year course comprising the age group of 6 to 10, a 3-year course comprising the age group of 11 to 14. And in accordance with National Policy on Education 1986, this policy stressed on the reorganization of education at different levels along with education for equality. According to this policy, elementary education structure should be pre-school education 2.5 to 5 years, primary education that is 6 to 11 years, middle education that is 12 to 14 years. All these stages comprises of elementary education. Dear students, now let us discuss the aims and objectives of elementary education. Elementary education shall aim to develop the spiritual, moral, mental and physical capabilities of the child, provide him with experience in the democratic way of life and inculcate ideas and attitudes necessary for enlightened, upright and useful citizenship. Some of the important objectives are to achieve the target of universalization of elementary education. The fundamental objective of elementary education is to make it available for all without any discrimination on the basis of caste, creed, color and sex. Next one is the utilization of human resources. The most important objective of elementary education is to utilize and develop the individual talent, capacities, capabilities and innate potentialities of an individual in a best possible manner, so that proper utilization of human resources will be made for the sake of nation. Elementary education is meant to develop democratic attitude. The key aim of the Indian elementary education is to build the democratic attitude among the growing generation. Elementary education is considered a sharp instrument for promoting the democratic qualities, that is justice, fraternity, equality, etc. It focuses for balanced development of personality, to develop physical, social, intellectual, aesthetic, moral, spiritual, economical and cultural dimension of personality is the core aim of elementary education. Elementary education helps in national and international understanding. The focus of elementary education is to enlarge intellectual horizon among the students, so that national and international understanding, qualities like sympathy, peace, obedience, goodwill, respect for others, universal brotherhood, service and sacrifice may develop. It helps in mastery over the tools of learning. The purpose of elementary education is to shape the cognitive, affective and psychomotoric domains of behavior in accordance with the needs and requirements of teaching learning process. The development of scientific temper is another objective of elementary education. To develop the capacities among children to solve the day-to-day problems with proper utilization of modern scientific and technological concepts. Elementary education helps in preparation for life. To prepare children for life through the provision of worthwhile practical activities and experiences, including work experiences. Elementary education is to help children in acquisition of fundamental knowledge, attitudes, habits and skills in science, civics, culture, history, geography, mathematics, arts and home economics, and livelihood education and their intelligent application in appropriate life situations. To pay respect for signs and symbols of nation, elementary education aims for developing love for national symbol, that is national flag, national anthem, national bird, national language and national culture, so that national integration will take place. For development of qualities for good citizenship, to develop consciousness of rights and duties, love for country, its tradition, customs, laws, culture, morality, values, sympathy and fellow feeling among children is the main aim of elementary education. And finally, it aims at self-expression. Elementary education aims to make children able to express themselves freely in the creative activities and should acquire habit of self-learning. Dear students, let us pay our attention towards the universalization of elementary education. Universalization of elementary education UEE in India means making education available to all children in the age group of 6 to 14 years and in class 1st to 8th. Opportunities for this education may be provided through formal or non-formal means of education. It signifies that education is for all. The concept accepts that education is the birthright of every child. This means all children belonging to rich and the poor, living in towns as well as rural areas and in places which are accessible with difficulties, have to be provided facilities for elementary education. Universal of elementary education envisages to ensure that all required infrastructure and human resources for providing 8 years of free, compulsory, relevant and quality education are in place. After independence, elementary education became one of the important items on the agenda of successive governments at state and the center. This is because the makers of Indian Constitution had made a provision that within a period of 10 years from 1950, free and compulsory elementary education would be provided to all children up to 14 years of age. The reason behind such a provision was to make all the citizens of the country literate, so that they could become productive members of society. Dear students, let us find out stages or steps for universalization of elementary education. Universalization of elementary education involves 3 steps, that is universalization of provision, universalization of enrollment and universalization of retention. Universalization of provision means that school facilities should be provided to all the children between the age group of 6 to 14 years in the country within the easy walking distance of a child. Further, it implies that neighborhood school system should be provided throughout the country. Another is universalization of enrollment. Universalization of enrollment means that all children between the age group of 6 to 14 years must be enrolled in elementary educational institutions. For this compulsory step has passed under legislation. Parents can be fined in case they are not sending their children to schools. Due to various reasons, the complete provision has not been fulfilled in our country yet. And the last step is universalization of retention. By this we mean that once a child joins a primary school, he should remain there till he completes all 8 classes. If a child leaves school in between, the idea of universalization stands defeated. Now, let us try to highlight the initiatives for achieving universalization of elementary education. There are number of centrally sponsored programs which are very famous and working in the country for achieving universalization of elementary education, like non-formal education. The non-formal education scheme was initiated in 1979 to cater learning needs of working children and children in difficult circumstances is one of the important centrally sponsored scheme. The NFE program is for the children of 6 to 14 age group who remain outside the formal system due to various reasons. Initially, the focus of the program was on 9 educationally backward states, but at present it is in operation in 25 states. By equipping these centers with information and communication technology tools, these centers provide connectivity and communication mechanism to all. Some people are employed in various firms and factories and need in-service education, training and orientation. Non-formal education can be provided through correspondence courses like radio and television programs, language laboratories, seminars, workshops, discussions, study circles, popular literature and public libraries. Next initiative being taken was Operation Blackboard, that is OB. It is the mission of equipping elementary schools with minimum essential facilities. This scheme was launched in 1987 to improve facilities in schools by providing more teachers, classrooms and teaching learning equipments. The OB scheme seems to bring both the qualitative and quantitative improvements in primary education. This scheme consists of following 3 components: provision of at least 2 teachers as far as possible, one of them woman in every primary school, providing at least 2 classrooms that are usable in all weathers with a deep veranda along with separate toilet facilities for boys and girls in each primary school, and providing teaching learning equipment to all primary schools. Next initiative is District Institutes of Education and Trainings, that is called as DITES, was initiated in 1987. The scheme proposed to create viable institutional, academic and technical resources base for orientation, training and continuous upgradation of knowledge, competence and pedagogical skills of school teachers in the country. Another initiative being taken was Total Literacy Campaign. The Total Literacy campaigns mobilize communities and contribute to greater participation of children in schools. The campaigns cover an estimated 148 million persons. Of 94 million persons enrolled, so far 73 million persons have completed level 3rd. The uniqueness of the TLC lies in the fact that it is delivered through volunteerism. Next one is early childhood care and education. National policy on education views early childhood care and education as an important input in the strategy of human resources development. NPE lays stress on the holistic nature of child development with nutrition, health, social, moral, physical and emotional development, and recommended that EECE should be suitably integrated with the integrated child development program. The local committee should be fully involved in ECCE program. ECCE is a support for the universalization of elementary education and also indirectly influences enrollment and retention of girls in primary schools by providing substitute care facilities for younger siblings. Next initiative is midday meal program. This scheme in India has been regarded as the largest program in the world. Under this, the students of government primary schools get benefit of midday meal on all the working days of their schools. The basic purpose of this scheme is that if the child from poor class can get this sort of facility, the retention rate will improve, they will feel motivated for learning. Next one is District Primary Education Program, DPEP. DPEP is emerged in 1994 as a response to various challenges in the primary education sector. DPEP adapts a holistic approach and has the essential ingredients required to universalize access, retention and improve the learning achievement and reduce the disparity among social groups. The program components include construction of classrooms and a new school, teachers training, development of teaching learning materials, research based interventions and decentralized management. Next one is Service Shiksha Abhiyan, SSA. Service Shiksha Abhiyan was launched towards the end of the 9th plan. It is an Indian government program aimed towards achieving universalization of elementary education in a time bound manner in partnership with state governments. This program aims to provide elementary education to all children in 6 to 14 age group. Obviously speaking, Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan is a bridge towards achieving the goal of universalization of elementary education. Another initiative for improving UEE is National Program for Education of Girls at Elementary Level. The government has approved a new program called National Program for Education of Girls at Elementary Level. This policy is an amendment to the scheme of SSA for providing additional components for education of girls at elementary level. The NPEGEL is a part of SSA and it is implemented under the umbrella of SSA. And finally, the Right to Education Act 2009. Right to Education Act is an act to put into effect the right to free and compulsory education to all children in the age group of 6 to 14. In 2002, the 86th constitutional amendment by Parliament making education as a fundamental right added new Article 21A in the chapter of fundamental rights, which mandates free and compulsory education for all children in age group of 6 to 14 years in such a manner as the state may by law determine. It was enacted by Parliament in 2009, received assent of President on 26th of August 2009 and approval of Cabinet on 2nd of July 2009. It was approved in Lok Sabha on 20th of July and Rajya Sabha on 4th of August 2009. It comes into force as a law on 3rd of September 2009 and on 1st of April 2010 came into the force of action. Some of the prominent highlights of the Right to Education Act 2009 are as to provide free and compulsory education to all children between the age group of 6 to 14 throughout India. No child shall be held back expelled or required to pass a board examination until the completion of elementary education. Next one is a child who completes elementary education up to class 8th shall be awarded a certificate. There must be a fixed student teacher ratio. According to this act, 25% reservation shall be for economically disadvantaged children. Next one is where there will be any kind of infrastructure problem in any school, those problems must be improved in 3 years, else recognition will be cancelled. And finally, in case private schools will violate the rules of Right to Education Act, they must be charged with penalty. By implementing Right to Education Act, India joins list of 135 countries in making education as a fundamental right out of 193 countries. UNESCO, United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, ILO, International Labour Organization, UNICEF, the United Nations Children's Fund welcome Right to Education Act 2009. Now, let us highlight the problems regarding universalization of elementary education. Some important problems of universalization of elementary education are illiteracy of parents. In India, most of the parents are illiterate. As a result of their illiteracy, they do not know the significance of elementary education and they provide less care towards their children. Nor they cooperate with teachers, neither they provide any kind of positive attitude towards their children. It is always remarked that good and congenial atmosphere of home is necessary for universalization of elementary education. Next, problem of finance. In India, only 3.4% of the GDP is spent on education, which is 6% in Japan and 5.4% in USA and 4.3% in China in year 2012. This small investment will not fulfill the needs of elementary education. This causes the paucity of teachers, school building, teaching learning materials, etc. Another, that is faulty curriculum. What is taught in our schools is not according to needs and interests of peoples. Further, our curriculum of elementary level is also dominated by subject centered approach. Activity centered curriculum is more important than subject centered curriculum at elementary level, but unfortunately such kind of quality is missing. So, we are unable to attract more and more attention of peoples in elementary education process. The next problem, that is lack of lady teachers. Small children must be taught by lady teachers because they are more affectionate than male teachers, but the percentage of female teachers is still insufficient. Another problem is problem of wastage. Wastage refers premature withdrawal from the school without completing elementary education. Major cause of dropout in schools are lack of teachers to teach people, lack of facilities at home, unattractive school environment, excess holidays, etc. This is the great problem of elementary education. The next problem is the problem of stagnation. Stagnation refers to remaining in one and the same class for more than 1 year or more than an academic year. It is a type of wastage in Indian context because classes are already packed with peoples and there is zero chance of accommodating failed people. Stagnation in India is about 33%. Important causes of stagnation are domination of examination, poor administration, lack of accountability, etc. The next problem, that is conservative attitude towards girls. Orthodox parents offer traditional attitudes towards their girls. They consider girls' education less important than boys, and as a result of their conservative attitude, they do not allow the girls to go to schools. So, this conservative attitude towards girls is great hindrance in universalization of elementary education. The next problem, that is population explosion. The tremendous increase in the population has led India towards population explosion. When there is population explosion, we have to increase universal provision, universal enrollment and universal retention. On the other hand, India being a poor country does not allow to meet the needs of huge population growth. So, this population explosion is another problem which we face in the way of universalization of elementary education. The next problem is the poverty of parents. Poor economic conditions force parents to keep their children away from schools. The poor parents face difficulty in providing books, uniform, transport expenditure and other educational requirements. In such families, children are earning with their parents, and parents also wish that their children should assist them in earning money in spite of receiving education. Then next one is existence of SCs, STs and OBCs. In India, there is presence of scheduled caste, scheduled tribe and other backward classes. Such kind of people do not have positive attitude towards education because of different waves of life. So, the misunderstanding and the negative attitude of such people is another obstacle in the way of universalization of elementary education. And finally, lack of part-time education facilities. Part-time educational facilities also contribute a lot in the way of universalization of elementary education, but India still lacks such facilities. At last but not least, let us try to find out some of the measures to overcome the problems of universalization of elementary education. Number 1, priority of elementary education. Elementary education should be developed on priority basis and percentage of budget should be suitably raised. Next is education of parents, that is illiteracy of parents is considered one of the great hurdles in the way of achieving universalization of elementary education. When parents are educated, they will recognize the importance of elementary education and will cooperate effectively with teachers and other agencies involved in the process of education. Only educated parents can provide positive kind of attitude towards their children. So, in order to achieve universalization of elementary education, illiterate parents must be educated. Next step is provision of special facilities to poor students. Provision of special facilities such as free supply of books, stationery, free uniform and school meals can be helpful in retaining children in schools. But more than that is the need for providing part-time educational facilities to the children from the poor families. Next, we need to create attractive school environments. Education should be suited to the environment and lives of children, so that they do not take it as a waste of time. Audio-visual aids should be made available in schools. Different methods of teaching should be used to arouse the curiosity and interest of children. Next one is that is controlling population explosion. If the population increases more and more, then it is impossible to cater all the children in schools. Population explosion discards both quality as well as the quantity of the elementary education. So, in order to universalize elementary education, we must control population growth. Next, we must have a strict ban on child labor. No doubt, Indian Constitution under Article 24 implements ban on child labor, but at ground level this ban is not strictly implemented, especially in rural areas. So, in order to universalize elementary education, the government should strictly implement ban on child labor. Another one is that is removing conservative attitude towards girls. In India, conservative attitude is provided towards girls. Most parents discriminate girls in education process. So, parents should be educated via TV, radio and some other means to change their conservative attitude towards their daughters. And finally, we can say making educational purposeful. Education must be purposeful and according to needs and interests of the child. Dear students, to conclude, we can say that elementary education is not concerned with any class or group, but has to deal with the entire population of the country. It touches life at every point, and it has to do most with the formation of national ideology and character than any other single activity. The initiatives taken so far are praiseworthy, but something more special is to be done for achieving the 100% target of universalization of elementary education. That is all about today's lecture. Hope you have enjoyed and understood. Thank you and goodbye.